This Fox News panel actually gave one of the most insightful, one of the most insightful analyses of the 2020 Democratic primary election that I have heard on mainstream media, okay? Like for the entire election. And that is not an exaggeration, ladies and gentlemen. But we're going to talk about it. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this morning's live stream segment of Niko House. And of course, as always, I am your humble host, Niko House. So first of all, I want to let you all know that I will be live streaming more often in the morning again. I've had a lot of people who have contacted me saying that they miss listening to my live streams at work. First of all, you should be working, right? You shouldn't be listening to my live streams. But if there was a live stream that you know, if you was going to listen to a live stream or a podcast anyway, you can listen to mine. It's cool. I ain't going to be mad at you. You'd rather listen to mine than somebody else's. Get you some education up in here, okay? All right. And, of course, I got to give a huge shout out to Case Study QB. Make sure that if you want to watch any of these hot takes or, most often, cold takes from the mainstream media, just saying the most ridiculous stuff. You know, it's like kids say the darndest things, but when kids say the darndest things, it's funny. When the mainstream media says the darndest things, you just kind of want to stab yourself in the eye and, put cotton in your ears because it's ridiculous. But that's not the case this time. It's not the case this time. Because on this Fox News panel, I was just kind of surprised. I'm not going to lie. You would have thought you were listening to YouTube. I mean, because this isn't what they're saying, what they talk about in reference to not only Bernie Sanders, but the primary election. They actually give some insight on past primary elections. They talk about the Republicans. They say the Republicans, they got caught off guard by Trump, and it was an amazing panel. So we're gonna listen to and talk about it. All right, let's get started.
There's a strong support for Bernie Sanders. Those people come out really, really strong, really, really solidly and enthusiastically. And it's going to be fascinating to watch how this plays out and how the people in Iowa are going to make the argument for their candidates.
Does Biden need to win one of the first two contests, either Iowa or New Hampshire, or can he come in a second in both those contests? Because it's increasingly looking like Bernie Sanders could run away with both of them.
He doesn't have to win both. If he won South Carolina, I think he could still have a solid performance, but I'm not so sure. I mean, being the front runner as a Democrat going into the primaries has never been a good position to be in. Hillary Clinton knows that from way back in 2008. She was definitely going to win, and Obama came in, started just with his momentum happening. It's hard to predict what's going to happen.
So those are some pretty hot takes, right? Not for us, because we pay attention to the numbers. We know that there's a high likelihood that Bernie's going to run away with caucuses, whether it's Iowa caucus or any caucus for that matter. Bernie's always been dominant in caucuses. We know this. We know that Bernie has 1 million volunteers, and a couple of 100,000 of those volunteers are in Iowa right now. We know that Bernie won New Hampshire the last election, and he won it pretty damn handedly. Not a surprise either. The only people who seem to be surprised by this are the establishment Democrats who don't pay attention to history or numbers, right? But this Fox News panel seems to understand both history and numbers, and are probably, from everything that I've seen so far, and of course, I must admit, I don't watch a lot of mainstream media. The only time I really get to watch mainstream media where it's somewhat stomachable is when Case Study QB puts their pieces together. So basically, this is the first time that I have heard a mainstream panel say pretty candidly and matter-of-factly, yeah, it's looking like Bernie's going to run away with both. And that the establishment Democrats like Joe Biden, like, is he going to be able to survive if he comes in second? And that's really a question that I feel like only our channel has posed, right? Like just a few days ago, I had this discussion in the midst of discussing Tulsi's strategy, her path to victory. And then I also had this discussion again when we were talking about what was it talking about? Oh, just not, well, one, not telling candidates to drop out, but two, specifically for those who are trying to tell Tulsi Gabbard to drop out, I was letting them know, like, you better pray she doesn't drop out, at all, but specifically before Super Tuesday, because they even know what I've been telling you all, which is if Biden doesn't win New Hampshire, if he doesn't win Iowa, if he doesn't win South Carolina, because it is becoming increasingly likely that he will not win any of them. And if Biden doesn't win any of those, what are the odds that you think Buttigieg or Klobuchar or Warren wins any of those? If Biden comes in third in any of those, what are the odds that you think that the other ones will come in first or second in the next two? In other words, if Bernie does well, if Tulsi does well, hell, if even Andrew Yang does well, the entire establishment is put on notice and they're screwed. And one could even make the argument, ladies and gentlemen, that that is partially the reason that they have tried to stack the deck so obviously with the DNC Rules Committee, which we'll talk about later on today. One can make the argument that they're stacking the deck because they are absolutely going out of their way to make sure that Bernie Sanders does not get unilateral control over the party if he wins the nomination. Because in the past, that has been the case. If you're a president, you can make a lot of the key appointments in the DNC. Barack Obama obviously chose Debbie Wasserman Schultz on behalf of Hillary Clinton. Clearly, I feel like that should be obvious. But that's generally how it goes. However, if Bernie Sanders takes over, I mean, obviously Tom Perez would be gone, right? Yeah, if the DNC Rules Committee doesn't have anything to say about it. So they are making an obvious point that it's kind of crazy hearing it once again spoken so matter-of-factly, without surprise, saying, I feel like this should be obvious by now. We should be asking the next question, right? He's going to run away with it. We should be asking the next question. Can Joe Biden even survive if he runs away with these two states? That's a legitimate discussion that we should be having on mainstream media. That's a fair discussion. That's an unbiased discussion. All right. Now, they actually said something else that should not be taken lightly, which is that being the Democratic frontrunner in the beginning of a Democratic primary election has never, at least in the last 2 decades, I can't remember Bill Clinton. Was that Ross Perot? I can't remember. I think that was Ross Perot. But basically, since 2000, I can say, it's never been a good position to be the Democratic frontrunner. Here's why. Let's start with 2016. Hillary Clinton was basically promised the election. But the only way you get promised an election is if you are embedded in the establishment, or a nomination, I should say. And if you're embedded in the establishment, history has shown, and I would say before Bill Clinton and the Democratic Leadership Council, history has shown that those who at least give the air that they're outside of the establishment, that they are new, that they are fresh, those are the ones, a fresh face, if you will, those are the ones who generally end up winning elections, unless it's just two establishment candidates and then, may the best man win. Hillary Clinton was embedded in the establishment. She cheated. She had to cheat because as a front runner, she became very scrutinized, and rightfully so. It exposed her and left Bernie an opening. But more specifically, it left Donald Trump an opening. He was able to, quote unquote, out-populist her and ended up beating her down in the general. Then you look at 2008 for the Dems. She was a front runner again. But she didn't realize that as a front runner, you shouldn't be punching down. Obama was a fresh face. Obama painted himself as being outside of the establishment. Unfortunately, Mike Gravel did, and Dennis Kucinich did as well. To a degree, I genuinely believe that Obama thought he was not establishment. He thought that. But I think people took for granted how malleable he was. And we can get into why that is, but he presented himself better. He was using a lot of the rhetoric that you hear in the progressive movement today. If you don't believe me, go back and look at those debates. And he postured himself to being far left of Hillary Clinton, and Hillary Clinton had to punch down because she couldn't rely on policies, because Obama was calling every single one of her policies out. Why? Because she was the one being the most scrutinized, because she was a front runner. Then we look at 2004. John Kerry won that nomination. However, if many of you remember, Howard Dean was, for the most part, the front runner. At the bare minimum, he had the most energy. And that energy got him in trouble. He has become a permanent Dave Chappelle meme. Poor guy. Oh, man. I feel bad for the guy. But yeah, so the moral of the story is, and then 2000, where once again, Al Gore was the front runner. But how was Al Gore the established front runner? Now, people will say, his climate activism and things like that. But let's be real. He was vice president to, at the time, one of the most popular Democratic presidents in history. But that meant he was embedded in the establishment. So what did George Bush do? Well, he cheated. But he stole Florida. His brother gave it to him. But, besides that, ladies and gentlemen, in all seriousness, George Bush, for those of you who don't know, he dumbed himself down. Not literally, but his rhetoric. He started feigning this country accent, made himself seem more relatable, and kind of, I want to say anti-establishment, but he just was like, I'm going to do it a little bit different than everybody else before me. He put that Ronald Reagan act on, right? That he was going to be a marauder, somebody that's different than everybody else. And ultimately, Al Gore lost. But one could argue, yes, Florida was stolen from him, but one could make the argument that if he wasn't so attached to the Democrats, he was part of the Democratic Leadership Council too, right? That 94 crime bill really did come back to bite the Democrats in the ass. He just was too Democrat. And one could make the argument that it hurt him, because you're not getting, for the most part, 16 years of Democratic presidency, unless it's something insane like FDR, who was considered a populist candidate or a quote-unquote Democrat socialist. So what she said is true. Joe Biden has every reason to be freaking out right now. We have every reason to believe that a progressive underdog will win. I still consider Bernie an underdog because he's continuing what he started in 2016. I consider Tulsi an underdog for obvious reasons. I consider Yang even an underdog for obvious reasons. And so we have more reason to believe that one of them will steal the nomination. We have more reason to believe that at the end of all of this, it will only be Bernie, Tulsi, and Yang, because history has shown us that the front runner never is the front runner by the end of it. And in fact, Howard Dean, like I said, didn't even end up in second place by the end of it. Hillary Clinton ended up in second, but that was only because literally everybody else, just was kind of forced to drop out. Bernie Sanders went from 2% in 2016 to quote unquote 3 million votes behind Hillary, but almost beat her, quote unquote 3 million. So once again, that point should not fall on deaf ears. So we're going to go ahead and continue.
My guess is we're going to be surprised. I think a lot of people are surprised at the support that Sanders has, and they dismiss it. And I think that's very, very dangerous, because the policies that Sanders is putting forth, whether you like them or not, are very, very popular with a certain segment of the American public, and you can't dismiss it.
The Democrats learned nothing from what the Republicans went through in 2015 and 2016. The more you poo-poo a candidate, the more you try to shame President Trump, it energized his base and it brought more people into the Trump fold because they started looking and listening to what he was talking about, and they have learned nothing. They keep crapping on Bernie Sanders. You got Hillary Clinton in this 4-part docuseries that's coming out in March talking about nobody likes him. Keep at it. The Democratic establishment, the more you talk down Bernie Sanders, the more you give a lift to his campaign.
They're still colluding against Bernie Sanders. They did that in 2016.
Wow. Wow. Y'all, I ain't even gonna lie. She seemed madder than us. Didn't she? She was like, y'all ain't learned nothing. Y'all cheating Bernie Sanders. Y'all talking down to that man. Hillary Clinton's little damn document. You know, nobody likes her. Nobody likes you. Democrats don't like you. Republicans don't like you. Independents don't like you. Your husband don't like you. Nobody likes you. Like, she seemed madder than us. But hey, I don't know what your name is, but I feel you. Because every word you said was absolutely 100% correct. Every single thing that woman just said was 100% correct. It's interesting to me. I don't know if y'all remember this segment, but I gave this metaphor. I said, you want to know the difference between a quote unquote Bernie Sanders type of grassroots movement, a true grassroots movement, and an Elizabeth Warren grassroots movement, right? Because she makes the claim, of course, that all of her donations come from unique and individual donors. She keeps leaving out the fact that she bundled a bunch of corporate money from her last Senate campaign that she obviously took in advance. So because she knew she couldn't hang around unless she did that. But the difference between Bernie's grassroots movement is like, the more you try and put, you try to douse the grassroots, it just keeps growing. It just becomes greener. You light it on fire, comes back greener. You try and destroy it, comes back greener, thicker. That's Bernie's grassroots movement. That's even Tulsi's grassroots movement. I've seen that with Andrew Yang. When Mike Gravel was in the race, we saw that happen too. The more they tried to keep him out, the more people fought for him to get into that debate. And it was awesome to see. And in this new age of social media, in this new age of politics, people they know who the enemy is. They know who the enemy is now. When Trump says fake news, people think that the left is unilaterally are unanimously saying, oh man, oh yeah, Trump is so stupid. How could he? No. The left be like, most of the left, the real left, we're looking like, shit, he ain't lying. We can't be mad about it because he's telling the truth. Am I right or am I wrong? Most of us, one of them few times, blind squirrel find a nut every now and then. And we be like, oh man, Trump, that boy just said some facts, because that shit is fake news. CNN is fake as hell. The only thing that would make it completely true is if he would throw Fox News in there, because they be on that fake news shit too. So what we have seen is that with the Bernie Sanders type of grassroots movement, the more you try and destroy it, the bigger and better it gets. Ask Hillary Clinton. She thought she had completely, the DNC as well, thought they had completely obliterated the Bernie Sanders movement that was started in 2015, 2016. Boy, were they wrong. They even thought that they had completely obliterated Tulsi Gabbard. I know that, because I saw WikiLeaks, just like we've covered it here, y'all know. It just made her stronger. Everybody else who claimed to be everybody else who has claimed to be grassroots, and once again, I don't legitimately include Elizabeth Warren in this, because to be quite frank, she transferred that 10 million from her corporate donors, so you're not grassroots. Duh, that's kind of what matters. But Cory Booker tried to do the grassroots thing. Kamala Harris tried to do the grassroots thing. Julian Castro tried to do the grassroots thing. And every single one of them, because although they were claiming to get their money from the grassroots, they were not organizing through grassroots means. They were still picking the same consultants. They were still picking the same strategists. And all strategists are, by the way, the Democratic strategists, I should say. All they are is overpaid fundraisers. That's all they are. And with three true grassroots candidates, but two obviously not polling quote unquote in the top 3, top 4, but they are still in the race with grassroots money. Do you understand how significant that is? And that's because when Yang, they tried to, undercut Yang, mess up his name. I mean, they did some nasty stuff, some really disgusting things to Andrew Yang. Like, I guess it would be racist. It would probably consider racist, the stuff that they've done to him. Like messing up his name, pretending like John Wayne and whatever else they call it. Oh, it just all sounds the same as long as we get his last name right. That's a trope, bro. And then of course everything they've done to Tulsi, literally putting her life in danger. And yet she just had her best fundraising quarter after they kept her off the debate stage. That's a grassroots movement. When you attack them, all 3 of these candidates have shown the propensity to get stronger from it. They absorb it like a damn blob. All of them. But the ones who do not have a true grassroots movement, it doesn't work out for them too well, does it? When they get attacked, they're immediately seen as vulnerable and people leave them. A lot of the time they leave them for a grassroots movement, huh? So what she said is absolutely true. Also, what she said about the Dems not learning anything from 2016 and learning what the Republicans learned from Trump, or by losing to Trump. That's so true. It's so crazy because we say that. That's how you know, bro. That's how you know they cheated in 2016. Look at what and Trump was running against everybody. He was running against somebody who's supposed to be ordained, damn near, coordinate. And Jeb Bush. Coordinated. Jeb Bush came into that race blazing. Really, and he seemed really nice. Even leftists were like, man, he's not that bad of a guy. He's kind of nice, actually. He's not even as bad as his brother. Like, and in a lot of ways, he's not as bad as his brothers. But a lot of people also felt like Jeb Bush was kind of only a Republican because of his parents' legacy. So that's a whole different discussion. And by the end of the election last time, you kind of felt like that. Now, you got to think about Marco Rubio, who was being pushed, came in blazing. Carly Fiorina's actually doing pretty well. Ted Cruz really came in second. And I'm going to tell you, bro, like Trump actually had some legit competition. But guess what they all thought it was smart to do? The same thing Hillary did in 2016 and the same thing that the Democrats are doing right now in 2020. They all thought it was smart to attack Trump altogether. And when you do that, what you were doing inadvertently is sending a signal to everybody watching. Okay, if all these people are ganging up on this one person, it's quite possible. And that one person is, they're attacking him for not being the same. Basically, that's what they attack Trump for. He's not the same as us. He's not as well kempt as us. He doesn't speak the same way we do. He doesn't, he's not, he has an elitist education, but he doesn't speak as if he has an elitist education. And so they were insulting his intelligence. Like that type of stuff, Americans, like not every American has an elitist education. Even less of them speaks like they have an elitist education. Not every American likes to fall into the place of normalcy. And a lot of Americans feel like normal politics needs to be changed, right? That's Bernie. Bernie doesn't speak like he has an elitist education, and people used to attack him for it. Now they realize, oh wow, that is actually, it might be the most genius thing that a politician's ever done. And once again, if you know your history, a lot of politicians who have won and had huge mandates spoke like a Bernie, spoke like a Trump. relatable. And they all attacked him for it. And you see this happening again. You see it happening right now, and they haven't learned their lesson. And then they thought once again, I can almost guarantee, Tulsi Gabbard may not have survived this long if the Dems dumbasses didn't keep attacking her. I can almost guarantee it. And this isn't really out of the blue for me, because I predicted that the reason she would end up lasting this long, I literally predicted it on here, and I predicted it on Twitter. And I'm gonna try to look for that thread. Some of my people still got it. But I predicted it here, and I predicted it on Twitter. I said that she would be attacked. She would end up eventually becoming so much of a threat to the left that she would be attacked by Democrats, and unfortunately she would be attacked by progressives. I said straight up that because of that, Fox News would start embracing her. I said that too. And once again, for those of you who've been here, you know, the true blue MCSC family, y'all know what I'm talking about. This is verbatim, okay? This is 100%. Then I said, once you start seeing, now we haven't entered that phase yet, but I said that once you start seeing, once Fox News begins seeing that she's becoming a legitimate threat, which won't happen until the middle of the election, then they'll begin attacking her too. But before that happens, what you will see is that I said that eventually the time will come to prove who's loyal, who's real. Warren will falter as usual. Tulsi will be steadfast and principled as usual. And then after everyone joins the coalition of attacking her, and there's going to be a pivotal moment. And that pivotal moment came when Warren attacked Bernie, when everybody sees that Tulsi has always been the one. She's always been the only other ally, steadfast ally in this movement, as far as out of the presidential candidates. Right? I said that. And then you would begin to see the tide turn, where now all you're seeing is mostly, if some of them are still not covering her, but all you're seeing is mostly positive coverage. The lies and the rumors were and partially because everybody keeps attacking her. But the buildup to where she's at, how she was able to survive to get to this point, there was always going to be, because they were going to black her out otherwise, there was always going to be a need for the Democrats to take the bait. And they took it so gloriously every single time. And they're doing it again with Bernie every single time. So we're going to play this last part. We're going to get up out of here.
16. And we know that from all the emails that were revealed.
The problem is you can always tell who's winning by the person everybody's reacting to. The person that everybody's reacting to is generally the one that they're most afraid of. It's generally the one that has its own momentum. We saw that with President Trump back in 2015, 2016. You're seeing it now with Bernie Sanders. I would argue if Elizabeth Warren wasn't in the race, Bernie Sanders would be the heir apparent for the Democrats.
Well, and she stole a lot of her platform from him, so that's another thing against her.
Oh man, y'all, really? I just don't get it. How can they see so clearly what we have been saying? Is it because they're not getting paid those big bucks by CNN? Is that what it is? It's crazy, bro. It's crazy because what that woman said at the end. And really, she said, Elizabeth Warren stole Bernie Sanders' platform. That's how she was able to last this long. And that's another knock against her. Stole it. Not propped it up, not joined together in an allyship, but stole it and claimed it as her own. Right? And she said that's another knock against her. Now, everybody in this comment section and everybody on the left, the progressive left, would now agree with that statement. Now they would agree with that statement. But here at the MCSC network, we have been saying that since whenever she entered the race, January? We have been saying that since January. What she said there, that now every progressive would agree with. Now every progressive would agree with. Before, half of the progressive movement had her as the second most progressive in this race. What? Are you fucking kidding me, bro? Really? But when we said that in January, y'all are just faux aggressives. Y'all are just toll cells. Y'all are just worried about personality. It's like, oh, weird. That's some weird twisted irony. We don't like Warren because of her policies and then her stealing other progressive policies, or at least in name stealing them, with no intention on enacting them or pushing for them. And we are the ones. We're the ones who are just obsessed with personality. It's crazy how that goes, huh? But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, that panel understands the trajectory of the Democratic primaries better than the Democrats do, with all of their access, better than a lot of the Democratic pundits do, with all of their contacts, all of their networks, all their access, all those consultants, all their insider polling, all that money. And Fox News and some random YouTubers see what the Democratic Party fails to see. Democrats, y'all got like a month and a half to win this election. Y'all have a month and a half to beat Bernie. And I don't even know if y'all could beat Yang or Tulsi, let alone Bernie. Let alone, like, Bernie is really, like, I'm obviously I know I've endorsed Tulsi, but like, once again, I'm a realist. I could when we're talking about when we're talking about this first month and a half, Bernie is on a different level when it comes to the raw numbers, the million volunteers, the million unique and individual donors, the diversity of his donors, the popularity, him being attacked, right? So like I said, when Tulsi was attacked in the way she was by Hillary Clinton, it gave her a significant boost. You didn't think that was going to happen to Bernie when he got attacked? Of course it was. It would be naive to think otherwise. And it happened at the right time for him as well. Tulsi needed that boost to get into those debates. Bernie needed that boost right before the Iowa primary. And unfortunately, I don't believe Tulsi or Yang can win the Iowa primary just because of the nature of the primary. But I know that Bernie can. I would rather Bernie win. All right, and then we'll see where they go as far as New Hampshire is concerned. But I do know this: Yang and Tulsi aren't out after the first 3 states. They have plenty of time. Their trajectory can really go nowhere but up. Biden's nowhere but down. Buttigieg nowhere but down. Warren is already done. She should just pack it in as it is. She should just pack it in. Who's the biggest threat to Bernie Sanders? Amy Klobuchar. Amy Klobuchar won't even beat Tulsi in New Hampshire. So if Bernie or Tulsi wins, Bernie's going to win Iowa. If Bernie or Tulsi wins New Hampshire, and then Bernie or Tulsi plays top 3 in South Carolina, keeping basically everybody else out of the mix there because that's an open primary state, I'm confused. How the establishment going to come up with an excuse to stay in? Because then Super Tuesday comes, and California's base is going to be a Bernie Sanders, Yang's really popular there, and Tulsi's really popular there. Kamala's out. Elizabeth Warren might hang around because she needs those. They're going to take I think Elizabeth Warren might stick around to try and take delegates away from Bernie to use those to gamble for a vice presidency spot. But I don't know if Joe Biden will last that long. And Bernie's not picking her. I think that everybody can agree with that, right? So, yeah, man, this is crazy. This is crazy. I'm glad that a Fox News panel could see what we've been saying. It's Bernie's, really, and I said this from January, it's Bernie's to lose. Another grassroots progressive can make it a race for him. And it would be strategically smart for them, because even if you wanted a vice presidential spot, like, you're going to have to get through the DNC to do it. And Bernie will sometimes bend at the will of the DNC, unfortunately. And if you're going to to convince Bernie to give you his delegates, to get him over the 51%, and to make you VP, you need to give him a bargaining chip to go to the DNC and like, look, this is the one who's been most popular. This is the one who can, draw in the most votes, take votes away from Donald Trump, because it isn't just about winning every Democrat in the country. There's not enough now. You got to take votes away from Trump. You got to bring in independents. So, and Bernie's already made it clear who he wants: a young woman of color who's a progressive. So you need bargaining chips, because they're going to try to stop that from happening no matter what. But the race is Bernie Sanders to lose at this point. So we'll see what happens. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for tuning into that live stream segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa. And always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell if you like that segment of Mi Casa es Su Casa. Of course, if YouTube is giving you trouble, as it always does, you can download the Rockfin app and follow us there. Also, if you want to continue to help our show grow, you can help us reach our goal of 500 patrons on Patreon and donate as little as $1. Really, anything helps. Other than that, always remember, people, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.